Welcome back to Open Line. Tonight we are talking about the school voucher program and a bill trying to make its way through the legislature. Passed a big hurdle last Wednesday. Moving on now to the full Finance Committee coming up here pretty soon. Representative Dunn is behind this bill, sponsor of the bill. We also have Representative Fitzhugh, minority leader in the House, to talk about why you don't exactly like this bill. We were talking about the budget of it and how the finances will work of this. I know you were wanting to chime in on that before we went to break. What are your thoughts on how this would work or not work?
Well, the cost to the public school system is, let's say for instance it was $6,000 a year per child, and there were 5 children from a particular class that left. So that's $30,000. But that school still has to have that classroom, still has to have the heat, still has to have the teacher, and the materials to teach the child, still has to open the school. So you know, it gets to a point where it makes a tremendous difference in the budget of the school. And at the same time, you take a $6,000, what are you going to get when you push that child through that door toward a private school? What kind of school is it going to be a good school? Is it going to be a school that has the same type of curriculum, same type of testing? Well, in the bill, there is a waiver provision where the school does not even have to take the same type of test as the public schools do. So how are you going to get a good comparison? And I heard Bill talk while we were off the air that a newsletter he sent out came back 70% for. Well, in a perfect world, maybe 70% of the people would be for vouchers, but if they consider the impact on public education, then maybe that 70% is not quite the correct figure.
Let me also ask you, Representative Dunn, what's kind of the catch safe? How do you know this is going to work? Let's say it passes. You have your kids in the school for 1 year, then you have them in for 5, 10. How do you make sure that this is actually working, that they are doing better in a private school?
Well, actually, the bill says that there will be an assessment, a test that they will cover. They can either use the state test or they can use a nationally normed test. So these are tests that have been tried and true, and they're a way where you can track the students. So there is accountability in this. The Department of Education will be involved, and of course if a school is not performing, they can be removed from the program.
And when you say the school is not performing, that would basically mean the students are not doing better. Does that mean a student gets yanked from the program? Is that a possibility?
But let's remember where these students are coming from. They're coming from schools where the failure rate is unbelievable. They're not even graduating from high school. Their ACTs are 14. You know, 97% of the students aren't proficient, and yet we're saying we're not going to give them a chance. It's better for them to go back into that atmosphere. And when you look at the numbers, you know, Leader Fitzhugh here talked about the 6 students. Those 6 students might be the one that tilted over to where they have to hire a new teacher, where they have to bring a portable in, where they have to have a whole new classroom because they were over the maximum size. So actually you would save even more money by keeping the school from having to bring a portable in and hire a new teacher. So it can work both ways. In a school, especially as big as Davidson County and the schools around here, they're used to kids coming and going all the time.
Okay, let's jump to the phone lines. Let's talk to, I think we have Bob on the line. Bob, good evening to you. What's your question or comment?
Well, this is a two-part question. I was told, I was possibly misinformed, that if a child leaves the public system and uses his voucher to go to a private school, the private school gets money for the entire year, even if that child stays for a month and then goes back to the public school.
Okay, let's get that one answered first, then we'll move on to the second one. True or false there?
My understanding is that it would be paid in installments, so it would not be for the full year.
Okay.
Second part, what happens when underperforming students get into these charter schools and drag their academic performance down as a whole? Because the charter schools can't get rid of them, correct? And the public school needs to keep these kids in the system one way or the other, correct?
Well, up front, the schools that want to participate will let the Department of Education know what their standards are, and so as long as they have those standards, then they'll be able to keep it. You know, our public schools, they're also able to pick and choose. There are some schools where a student might be zoned for, and then because they don't have the resources there, they will go to a different school. So, you know, not all
the charter schools get rid of underperforming students.
Okay, well, first of all, we're not talking about charter schools. We're talking about private schools.
private schools, charter schools, will they be able to get rid of underperforming students, unlike the public school system?
Well, they're gonna, if they're gonna take the vouchers, then they're gonna take the students. So
They couldn't
I guess,
go ahead.
Well, and as I understand the bill, they're under the same rules and regulations as the other students. So if they don't perform to the private school standards, just like they can refuse to take a regular student, so to speak, they can refuse to take these students as well. And then you've got a whole situation where that child has got to come back in the public schools. If you're halfway through a year, what do you do? Where's the money? Is there any left? Are they going back for the parents, or going back to the private school to recoup the money? So you run into a lot of practical problems.
Have these?
Last question.
Okay.
If the representative who introduced the bill wouldn't mind telling us what his voting record has been on public school funding increases, and I'll hang up and listen to the answer.
Okay, thanks, Bob.
Well, Leader Fitzhugh and I both came in '94, and I believe ever since then I've always voted for full funding of the BEP program. I voted for pay raises for the teachers. I've got a daughter who was a kindergarten teacher until she gave me some grandchildren, and a sister who's two sisters who are teachers. And before I was a representative, I was actually a 4-H agent in Granger County, where I was in the schools almost every day working with young people, and received an award for my work with them. So if you're insinuating that I have something against public schools, you're mistaken. I think I would like to work towards the day where every school is out there and succeeding, and no one even thinks about going someplace else. But that's not where we are right now. Right now where we are, we have children who are on the path to failure. And that failure is going to cost us all in prisons and food stamps and everything else. And for 30 years, ever since the BEP came, money has been going in. We've doubled, tripled. I think we're up to quadrupling the money we're spending on public schools, and yet we still have schools that are failing children.
And let me ask you about that.
And let
Go
me
ahead.
just say,
Go ahead.
I think it's almost like the ship is sinking. The ship is sinking, kids are drowning, and we're arguing over, well, we don't have enough lifeboats, so let's not put any out, or we don't like the color of it, or what if somebody gets out on the sea and doesn't get rescued? We're arguing over these things. We should have that discussion, but in the end, we have to realize that young children's lives are being ruined forever. We've got to do something.
Well, now, Bill, and Bill's an honorable man. He's just a little misguided on this issue. But a while ago, he said that we were some of the fastest improving school states in the country. Now, that whole boat can go the other way. It can rise, and it has risen. And so there are schools that are always going to be on the bottom. They're different. The bottom is going to be less deep. So we are making improvements. We have made substantial investments in these lowest performing schools through various means, and we're making improvements there. Now, what are we going to do? Is it the right thing to just shuck all that, quit putting those monetary investments in there, quit putting those better teachers in there, better principals, and then going to an unproven private school? Is that the way to do it? I say no. I say let's improve our public schools. Once we get beyond that 47th percentile in funding and get it up to about 50% instead of the bottom 50, at least the upper 50, that we will have the ability to see how good our public schools can be. And then if there's still some problems with some students in some schools, we can make changes like we have with charter schools and like we have with the Achievement School District, and then possibly on to a voucher program.
And I understand what you're saying, but let me play devil's advocate here in that, wait and see, let's keep doing this. What if I'm the mom of a 5th grader who says, I don't have time to wait and see. By the time you're waiting and seeing, my child is a freshman or a sophomore in high school, and who knows, maybe they decide they've had it, they're dropping out, or they're so far behind they can't catch up.
I understand that, and believe me, that is a frustrating thing on a parent's part. Assuming the parent is involved and all that, that's a tough situation to be in. But do you just say, okay, send your child to that private school and automatically you're better? That's one of the main things I have against this bill. That there is no accountability going forward. There's no we don't know what these private schools are like. We don't know how the children are going to do with those that they can go to. Now, we know private school education costs tens of thousands of dollars at this level, but this bill will not pay for that. It just won't do it. To try to, if parents think that their child is going to be able to go to one of these private schools that has those high tuition charges, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah. Do you know how many schools and what kind of schools are going to accept this if this passes?
Well, actually, there's a lot of private schools that tuition is less than what the public schools are charging. So different schools have different levels of tuition, but there are schools that would accept this.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break. We've got some great callers lined up, so I am going to take your calls just as soon as we come back. Stay where you are. We're talking school vouchers today.